Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to another Walking Dead video. So in this one here, I want to talk about The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, because as you know, the show premiered on Netflix the other day, and yeah, it's been actually super popular. There's been a lot of talk about it. There's been a lot of interest in like a season 2 or a new series, and I really want to talk about how successful the show has been in the last like however many days since it premiered, and yeah, because this show honestly is doing amazing right now. So yeah, before going any further, make sure to be a subscriber if you do want to get all my Walking Dead content like this. Now, I will be actually streaming later on today as well. I'll be streaming on Twitch, so I hope to see you guys there. If you do want to follow me there, the channel name is Appetite for the Dead. The link should be in the description of this video, but let's talk about The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live right now. So obviously the show is doing really great right now. The show premiered on Netflix on the 13th, so that was Monday, which was 3 days ago as of recording this anyways, and the show is honestly doing really amazing. Like, I did sort of make a post about it when Netflix, I guess, like promoted it the other day, because they promoted it with this scene of Rick and Michonne reuniting, like, and I kind of just said, like, you know, like, it's hilarious to actually like promote the show like this, but you reveal one of the biggest scenes there. But obviously I know that the excitement overall of seeing this scene is gonna get people to watch. Like, it's not necessarily a spoiler. Like, it is kind of a spoiler a little bit. Like, if you haven't watched The Walking Dead in a while, like, you know that Rick and Michonne are going to see each other. But I think that whole excitement for, you know, those characters to reunite kind of ended last year anyways, because the characters, you know, like, we knew they were going to reunite, and that was sort of the whole point of, like, you know, watching week to week, was to like see when they were going to reunite. Obviously they did in the first episode, but it was just the excitement and that build, you know, to watching the show. And I think that's just, you know, and I think that for now promoting the show, it's definitely, I mean, seeing the scene, it's really cool because you see Rick and Michonne literally seeing each other. And like, if you haven't watched The Walking Dead in years, like a very long time, and I've seen a lot of people saying that, like, I haven't watched since this season or this and that, and I'm really excited to actually see why Rick and Michonne are like looking at each other like that, because it makes no sense. And so there's this whole story there that a lot of people don't know about, that Rick and Michonne were actually separated for a very long time, that Rick was actually, you know, everyone thought he was dead for many, many years, and so to actually find him again, like, there's this whole story there that not a lot of people know about. And so Netflix, I think, honestly, the show being on Netflix right now is really great because there's a lot of interest, and it's really funny because there's a lot of talk right now of wanting another season. And, you know, I'm trying to think of some other ways I can do videos on The Ones Who Live, just sort of, you know, revisiting the show maybe. Like, I'm getting a lot of like talk about like, oh, can you review this? Can you break down this episode, this and that? And I've already done all of that. All of that's on the channel, so I'm not gonna do a review or breakdown of each episode, but I maybe could revisit the season, revisit certain episodes. I haven't really watched The Ones Who Live since it aired. I've watched an episode or two, but I haven't really watched the entirety of it, so maybe I could sort of do like a revisiting or this and that to see how it holds up, and like just looking back at certain moments, because that's the one thing that I guess I haven't ever done, like looking back to episode 1, 2, and 3. You know, when I reviewed it at the time, I was wondering if certain moments would lead to this or that, but obviously, you know, like, we didn't watch episode 4, 5, and 6 or whatever, so we had no idea what was happening. But it would be kind of cool to go back and see, like, oh, this moment meant this for the future, or this meant that, or I wonder if there would be other things that would stand out. You know, like, again, I haven't really went back and rewatched it, so with all this renewed interest right now in The Ones Who Live, like, I might actually go back and do that. And I will say as well, and the reason why I'm saying a lot of this right now for The Ones Who Live is because on Netflix, it actually premiered at, I think it was after the first day or two. It might have been like literally like the next day, but it was number 5 on like the top 10 like watch shows or whatever on Netflix. And so I saw that it was actually at number 2, I think, recently. I could be wrong about that. I haven't checked, but it is climbing quite a bit. I imagine it probably will hit number 1 at some point here in the next couple of days. And that's really interesting because that's one thing that I've heard a lot over the last couple of years, is that The Walking Dead does really amazingly on Netflix. Like, I heard that the numbers for like the original series and stuff is really, really great. I know that Walking Dead in like 2022, 2023, like, it did really, really well around that point. And so I think that, you know, like, The Walking Dead has always done really, really well. I think that right now, especially with The Ones Who Live, like, you have Rick and Michonne, and like, just thinking of the quality of the show overall, like, looking back to episode 1, that honestly really could have been a movie. Like, it's a really great story, like the cinematics and like the music, everything about that episode, and honestly the show in general, and also just the spin-offs in general. Like, I think the one thing that this will do as well is, you know, a lot of people who like zombies, or a lot of people that, like, that's the thing too, I'm really interested in like what people that, you know, I guess, you know, haven't watched The Walking Dead ever think about all of this, because Like, imagine you never watched The Walking Dead ever, right? Like, it's been on for a while. So, like, if you weren't there, in the first couple of years of watching it, that makes total sense. Maybe you've started watching the last couple of years, or maybe you're just seeing this on, the top 10 thing or whatever for Netflix, and you're like, oh, that seems really interesting. There's zombies and all of that. And so this is your first introduction to The Walking Dead. I mean, there's a whole other story there, but just because of how amazing it looks, you might want more of a story there. Like, honestly, when you really look at The Ones Who Live and the way it ends, like, it ends almost very open-ended. And I remember a lot of the reviews at the time, like articles and stuff being posted about it. That was the one thing that they said, was that, like, the story sort of ends open-ended. Like, there's a conclusion, but it's open-ended because it's like, it's not a final goodbye. It's like, it feels like their story is just beginning because, like, they reunited with their family, but we want to see more there. There's so many questions about where they're going next and all of this stuff. Like, there's a lot there that it feels like this was really just the start of something, and I do wonder where they're going to go next. I really do wonder where the story is going to go next, because I saw an article here talking about season 2 and whatnot of The Ones Who Live, and they're basically recapping a lot of, I guess, what we're talking about here. This article is from thedirect.com, and they're recapping a lot of, I guess, what we've been talking about over the last year. And again, there's a lot of stuff being written right now about The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live season 2. Like, there's a lot of interest in it right now. So it's quoting a lot of, the stuff we've talked about, a lot of stuff that Gimple has said over the last year about, like, there's no plans right now. Like, he said that around the time that The Ones Who Live ended, so that would have been in, like, March last year around there. The article says that Andrew Lincoln and Denai Guerrera want to return for season 2. And so it quotes what they said here. And I guess I'll get into that, exactly what they said here, because I'm sure that there could be people watching this video right now wondering a lot more about, The Ones Who Live season 2 and what's going on there. Andrew Lincoln said this about it. He said, "Never say never. There are other very important characters in the universe that are still wandering around and alive that I think it might be quite exciting to have them breathe the same air and see how long they survive together. But it's a difficult one. It would have to be like this, a really exciting story." So obviously, like for Andrew Lincoln to want to return, as Rick Grimes in another story, it would have to be like The Ones Who Live, which I think fans would want, right? Like, we want the same type of quality, the same type of writing and everything there, which is, obviously, yeah, like, you do want that, right? And then Denai Guerrera said this about returning. She said, "Listen, we couldn't be more thankful for the response there. It has been so incredible. Our goal was that we proposed a premise around these characters seeing it through to each other. I'm proud of our creative choices and the way we stuck to our guns about various things and making sure that we tried as hard as we could to stay a few steps ahead of what the audience might be expecting next. We didn't take any easy roads on this, and thankfully it's paid off. I know that recently, or I think it was last summer, I don't know when it was, but it was definitely way after The Ones Who Live finished airing. It was at some point in the summer, fall, or whatever, but Denai Guerrera was asked about, like, ever returning as Michonne, and she was kind of quiet about it. Like, she didn't want to get into it. And what's interesting about that is maybe you could say, well, maybe there's nothing there. Maybe she knows nothing. Well, in the same interview, she was asked about, returning to Marvel. And she said that she really knows nothing and she's really hopeful that she can return to Marvel, this and that. So to me, when you look at both things that she said, I'm like, okay, well, she doesn't know what's going on with Marvel. And she was very honest about it. She was asked about Michonne and she's like quiet about it. She doesn't want to say anything. So to me, I think she knows more about what's going on with Michonne and like the future. And that's kind of where things are right now. I do think that we are going to get a next story. I don't think we're going to have to wait another like 5 or 6 years, because it's been a year already since The Ones Who Live aired. There was 6 years from Rick's exit to when he was in The Ones Who Live. I don't think we're going to have to wait, 6 years from 2024. So 2030, which would be 5 years from now. We're not going to wait that long. We're definitely going to be seeing Rick and Michonne at some point. I'm guessing maybe 2026 or 2027. This year is going to be very interesting because last year, it was one of those things where after The Ones Who Live aired, unless they announced something right away, like the rest of the year was going to be very like, we're probably not going to get a lot of information on this right now. And I think that, going into 2025 now, especially going into Comic-Con later this year and some of the stuff that has recently sort of come out in terms of possible rumors of a season 2 and all of that, I think that it's going to be a really exciting year. I think that we will get some sort of confirmation that they are going to return, and it's just going to be a matter of when and like when the show is going to premiere. The one thing that I will say though is that they've been pretty good with that, like in terms of announcing like when the characters are going to be coming back for sure. Like for The Ones Who Live, in 2022, they said 2023, and like yes, it got pushed off until 2024, but everything during that time got pushed off like a little bit. Like it was a couple of months, right? I imagine The Ones Who Live was originally supposed to come out in like October or something of 2023, but got pushed off until February. So yeah, The Ones Who Live is doing really amazing right now. And so in terms of a season 2, you know, everyone's very hopeful right now. It does seem like, you know, it could happen at some point here, but it could be, you know, a new series as well. Like, I think that The Ones Who Live maybe was just about Rick and Michonne reuniting, and that was it. And going into a new series here would be an entirely new story. But what is really interesting about it, though, is, you know, The Ones Who Live is a very, very popular name now. The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live is just very known right now. I feel like changing to a different series entirely, like, would have to get everyone used to, like, the new name and everything. And I don't know, I think doing a season 2, and then, like, I could just picture it premiering on Netflix, like, the year later or something like that. Just how successful that would be, right? Like, if you just think about how successful season 1 is here, people are going to be like, oh, wait, whoa, a season 2, right? So I think that, I don't know, like, honestly, I go back and forth a lot. Like, sometimes I'm like, yeah, a new series makes a lot of sense, but, you know, The Ones Who Live is very popular right now. So I feel like if they announce a season 2, it makes way more sense, right? Like, you don't want to constantly be changing the names all the time. We kind of saw that with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 2, because they added the subtitle, The Book of Carol, and I really do think that hurt the show, because it was just too long of a title. It just didn't seem like it was a part of The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon. Like, the entire season just didn't feel like a season 2 to the first season. It's very, like, it's so hard to explain, but that was sort of the whole feeling around season 2, was that it didn't really feel like the second season of the show, because in all the promotion, it was just The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon, The Book of Carol. And so that doesn't really tell people immediately that, oh, this is another part to the story. Like, it's something related to the show, it seems like, but not necessarily that it's the second season, right? And so I think that's why with The Walking Dead Daryl Dixon season 3, I'm really happy that they're going back to that. I do think it'll do a lot better. So anyways, I'm gonna leave it here. Definitely post all your thoughts down below. Hope you all enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.